Okay, InCorp Philippines is the leading corporate solutions provider in the country, doing business beyond borders by assisting clients with their business registration, product registration, corporate housekeeping, HR consulting, payroll, recruitment and executive search, and Philippine visa services needs. Feel free to contact us and set up an appointment to discuss how we can help you with those concerns. Allow me to formally introduce our resource speaker for today. First is Ivy Leslie Tahimic. She is our Asia Solutions Advisor and Data Privacy Officer here in InCorp Philippines. She has extensive experience in salary and benefits benchmarking, learning and development, and organizational development. She's been in an industry for 12 years. Practice areas is HR consultancy, business development, and client management. She graduated at Centro Escolar University with BS Commerce major in management, and she has few credentials for postgraduate at De La Salle College of St. Benilde in Certificate of Training Program in 2013 and University of Asia and Pacific of Certificate in Human Resource Development in 2014. We will also have Ms. Leia Galera. She is the Recruitment and Executive Search Director in InCorp Talent Solutions. She will be helping us to answer your questions about this webinar. She is responsible for handling the day-to-day operations of the Recruitment and Executive Search Division in InCorp Talent Solution. Her experience is more than 15 years already. Practice areas are talent acquisition, then business development, and client management. She graduated at De La Salle University, Manila, BA in Organizational Communication. So I'm going to give the floor to Ivy to officially
this webinar. I hope you learn a lot from this event.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's Navigating the Modern Job Market Using Salary and Benefits Benchmarking to Stay Competitive webinar. So I hope everybody has already taken their lunch. Can you put up a thumbs up sign for those who have already taken their lunch? Great. How is everybody doing? Put another thumbs up if you're doing great today. Nice. That's very nice. All right. To jump off this webinar, actually, this is going to be a bit of an interactive webinar. So feel free to engage, as mentioned by Sherwin, through the comments box, through your putting up emojis and writing your comments and questions, so we can properly address them at the end of the webinar proper through the Q&A session. And at some points of this webinar, I'll be asking some engagement as well from the audience. So feel free to engage with me during the course of this talk. Let me start off this webinar by stating a shocking statistic. The statistic came from Michael Page from their Philippines Salary Guide 2023. By the way, can you hear me properly? Put up a thumb sign if you're able to hear me properly. That's great. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. So anyway, 83% of respondents from Michael Page's Philippine Salary Guide 2023, and this spans across different age groups, industries, markets, and seniority levels. This statistic states that this number is contemplating, just hold on, let me just share my deck. I'm sorry for that glitch. Can you see my screen now? Yes. All right, great. All right. According to Michael Page's Philippine Salary Guide for 2023, 83% of the respondents are contemplating on shifting career prospects, and still salary has become the top key determinant for job candidates whenever they make decisions what organization they'd like to get employed at. So this makes it really significant. Organizations being able to offer attractive and competitive salary and benefits package is of paramount importance, especially if that business organization aims to be competitive in the modern market. So thus, we are conducting this interactive webinar to be able to assist you and validate your understanding. And for those who have to understand better the topic of salary benchmarking. So we are really hoping that this webinar will be of help to everyone in this attending this webinar. So this webinar will give an overview of salary and benefits benchmarking, explaining how it functions, why it's important, and how employers can take advantage of it. Let me provide you a roadmap of our talk this afternoon. So we will be tackling the definition and significance of salary benchmarking. And then we'll touch on the steps in salary benchmarking analysis. Then moving on, how to make use of salary benchmarking data to create an internal pay structure. But then just to set everyone's expectations, a nitty-gritty discussion or a more detailed discussion of this third bullet would be addressed by a more in-depth separate webinar on job analysis and evaluation, which the firm intends to roll out possibly towards the second half of this year. But then I'll try my best to provide an overview of how to make use of the salary benchmarking data to create an internal pay structure. And finally, we'll talk about the latest trends on employee benefits in the post-pandemic Philippine job market. Here's our learning outcomes for this talk. So we'd like our participants to be able to define salary benchmarking and discuss its significance in establishing competitive and fair pay practices. The next objective is to explain the steps involved in gathering data, analyzing it, and interpreting the results of the salary benchmarking analysis. Next, we are intending that participants will be able to utilize salary benchmarking data to create a pay structure that is in line with our organization's overall compensation strategy and business goals. And finally, we are aiming that our participants will be able to identify the latest trends in employee benefits in the post-pandemic Philippine job market. All right, at this point, since I mentioned that this is going to be an interactive webinar, are some of you or a lot of you familiar with Mentimeter? Could you put a thumbs up sign for those who have encountered using Mentimeter? So I see some thumbs up emojis, but let me shift now to our Mentimeter app. Can you see my screen with the Mentimeter questions? All right. Do you see on the middle upper portion of the screen the URL there, www.menti.com, and the code 151464558? Could you put a thumbs up sign if you see this header? A thumbs up sign, please. www.menti.com and the figures, the numbers after the word code. All right. We need our participants to make use of their phones. If we have data, mobile data, internet on your phones, type on the browser www.menti.com, and then once you go to this site, type in the code 151464558. So our first question, this is going to be a brief survey. The first question would be, have you implemented a salary increase in your organization in the past year? And no, don't worry, the answers are anonymous. So those who will be responding will not, the identity of those responding will not be identified or disclosed by the app. All right, are we expecting some more answers? All right, so give a few more moments for the rest of you who haven't accessed menti.com. We have 14 respondents so far, but as of now, 75% say, or the majority, that they have implemented a salary increase in the past year, while 11% have not implemented an increase. Oh, okay, now goes to 80% who have said yes, 81%. Let's give a few more moments for those who would like to still participate in the first question. Any others who would like to answer? All right. At this point, at 21 respondents, 81% or the majority have responded that their organization has implemented a salary increase in the past year, while it's a tie between no and I'm not sure. So there, but it's good to know that majority of you, 82%, are able to provide an increase in their salary, employee salaries during the past year. All right, let's move on to the next question, and let's see how the pulse of the participants here. The second question: how would you rate the quality of your company's benefits package compared to other companies in your industry, or if not within your industry, within the market in general? Do you think that it's competitive or not so competitive, or if you're not sure and you need help with benchmarking? All right. So far, 12 people have and 14 people have responded, and 56% are claiming that their benefits package are competitive. Any other respondents? 19, 21. All right. All right. 22 people have responded, and looks like the majority say at 55% that their benefits package are competitive. 57% say that their benefits package are competitive, and 39% say that they're not sure and they need help with benchmarking, while the minority, which is 4%, they're honest and they're saying that their benefits offering is not so competitive. And finally, let's move on to the next and final question, survey question. Does your organization have plans of comparing your salaries and benefits to other companies, either within your industry or with comparable industries? You could either answer yes, we have plans of doing so, or no, it's not yet our priority. All right, so far we have a couple of respondents here who say that yes, they have indeed plans of doing so. All right, 19 respondents, 20. Any others who would like to respond? All right, so 22 respondents. All right, so 86% of the people in this webinar are saying that yes, they do have plans of performing a salary survey, while 14% is saying that it's not yet their priority. For those who responded, the 14% who answer that it's not yet their organization's priority, I hope somehow this webinar will be able to provide insights to guide you and give you help you in your decision making as to whether you'll wait a little time to perform a salary survey, or would it be helpful for your organization, respective organizations, to perform a salary survey in the near future. So stick with me in the next hour or so as I present you the rest of the topic. Please allow me to move to my main presentation. Can you see my screen still? Can you put a thumbs up if you see it? All right, great. This is still part of establishing our learning climate in the training field. It's very important before starting a training session or a webinar. It's important for the facilitator to prepare their learners in their learning journey. So this afternoon, as one of our starting activities, I'd like our participants to respond on the chat box and cite the most pressing challenge you have experienced in relation to your organization's compensation and benefits practices. Could you chat on the chat box so we could see? And Sherwin will help us identify what are those pressing challenges that our participants are currently experiencing with regards to their compensation and benefits practices? Do we have any responses now on the chat box? None yet? All right.
Okay, take I have one. Okay, one I bit here is stop requesting for a higher raise due to the rising inflation. Yeah, very timely.
All right. Do you have any other pressing challenges?
I got here one as budget. Budget.
And the other one is resources getting offered twice or thrice their current salary.
Okay, so the incumbent employees are expecting a certain percentage of salary merit increase. Is that correct? Is that what the comment is conveying?
No,
I think they're getting offers, so they're looking for another job that's
Higher.
higher salary.
Higher. I see. All right. With this particular challenges, would like to share their insights as to those who are experiencing the similar challenges in terms of offering compensation and benefits. How do you currently address those particular challenges cited by your fellow webinar participants?
Okay, so just type in your answer. Before that, Ivy, we also received another one on your first question. It's unclear and outdated benchmark in the industry. Okay, so.
All right. For the outdated benchmark insights, yes, I understand that. In the next slides, I'll be talking about the sources of benchmarking data which are available out there, and I could possibly cite some pros or some challenges with each of these benchmarking sources. So we could possibly touch on that in the next slides. So for those who would like to share briefly, for those who would like to share their insights as to your fellow participants' challenges here in terms of offering compensation and benefits, can I hear briefly some of those who would like to share their insights? How do you currently address these challenges? I'd like to hear the best practices among this crowd. You could type it on the chat box or you could unmute yourself. Anyone?
Okay, we have here geographical differences of salary matrix tied up to the location, salary minimum, and max pegged by management. Yeah, I think this is very timely, Ivy.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sure.
Geographical differences of salary matrix tied up to the location, salary minimum, and maximum pegged by management. Because I think the statement here is in an organization, there is always a starting point and maximum point of the salaries of employees. I think this is also a good practice, right?
Yes, actually, it's really a good practice to be able to employ in the salary ranges a minimum, a midpoint, and the maximum salary range, because that's one of the ways to manage labor costs. Yeah, so it's really a good practice. So the last point would be, the last part of the statement would be, sure, could you repeat?
Pegged by the management.
Yes. I'll be discussing ideal or guidelines in terms of establishing the salary range spread, meaning the difference between the minimum and the maximum range. So, and then I'll be talking about briefly the compare ratio, which could be a viable tool in assessing the competitiveness of your salary versus market data there. So in the next slide, please bear with me as we tackle first a few more items before that particular topic. All right. Anyone else who would like to share their insights and their current challenges, or how you're able to address within your organizations the certain challenges that your co-participants are currently experiencing with their offering compensation and benefits? Any other insights?
Okay, I think there's no more maybe they are eager to learn more, Ivy, on how they do
Sure.
benchmarking.
All right. So I'm sure I'm thinking that after I have presented my topic for this afternoon, the questions will come in. So and hopefully the challenges that you were able to cite just now, well, our webinar will be able to address somehow, especially as regards offering competitive salaries and viable benefits that are at par with market standards. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk about what salary benchmarking is. So a lot of HR practitioners are already making use of the salary benchmarking as a strategy to assess and to gauge the competitiveness or how their organization's compensation levels fare against market standards. So this is basically comparing your compensation levels and benefits for specific roles within an organization against market standards and industry averages. And it also involves gathering and analyzing data from various sources. In the coming slides, we'll be discussing where you could possibly find benchmarking data. And so gathering, analyzing data will help us determine appropriate salary ranges. So we'll hinge the salary ranges based on market data. So that's a good way to stay competitive, making sure that we're offering attractive compensation packages that are at par with market standards. So we might be asking, why is salary benchmarking significant? Why is it important? So in the modern market where there is a war for talent that is happening, where we have very limited pool of talents and organizations are competing for the best and the brightest talents, so it's of paramount importance that the business organization stays competitive in terms of compensation and benefits. So making use of a salary benchmarking study would help the company adjust their pay based on market standards. And this could be a good basis in establishing your salary ranges for each of the positions in your organization. And then it would also help you pay your employees competitively. As mentioned, with the war for talent, employees nowadays do not usually stay in the company for decades, like in the time of our elderly people who used to work in the job market. Now, a lot of young generation employees would look for more lucrative benefits and compensation offered by other organizations in the market. And then this will also help you treat your employees equitably. What do you mean to say when you mention about pay equity? This basically means that we pay our talents or our employees the same for those talents who are performing similar or the same job duties, while taking also into consideration factors such as the employee's tenure, his or her job performance, and their work experience. And then one way to attract and retain top talent is also could also be helped by making use of a salary survey. So a lot of our candidates, as mentioned in the opening slides of my presentation, salary is still a key determinant for job candidates to decide which organization they'll be working at. And it's also a good way to retain talent if the organization is able to offer attractive compensation and benefits package. And a salary survey would help the organization promote fairness and transparency in their pay practices. So if there's a systematic basis for the organization in paying their employees, then this could promote transparency, and this would encourage confidence and engagement among your employees. Another significance of salary benchmarking is it would help the company estimate overall labor costs. So this will help us make sure that we're not underpaying or overpaying our employees, and it would help us effectively manage our financial resources. And lastly, it would help the organization improve their external competitiveness. So let's now move on to the steps in conducting a salary benchmarking analysis. This slide is an overview of the slides that I'll be tackling in the next portions of this talk, where we'll be talking in greater detail about each of these steps. But basically, in a bird's eye view, the steps in conducting a salary benchmarking analysis would be defining the scope and objectives. Next is collecting the data. The next step would be analyzing the data and moving on to interpreting the results and developing a plan and finally implementing changes. So there, let's talk about the first step, which is defining the scope and objectives. So in InCorp, although a lot of different key players or providers of salary benchmarking in this, insights in the industry have employ their own methodologies in performing the salary benchmarking study. At InCorp, what we normally do is the first step after having established the reasons or the background of the client, the rationale why the client needs help with the salary benchmarking study, and knowing their purpose for and their expected outcomes out of the benchmarking study. The next step is for us to establish the client's benchmarking preferences. So we basically customize the reports, the benchmarking insights according to the client's specific benchmarking preferences, which would include determining what positions or job roles they'd like for us to study, and the relevant labor markets, meaning the industry, which is really an important benchmarking point for us to know. Like, for example, a lot of our clients would require or request us to study a similar industry where the client belongs. But then we have certain clients, like a certain client we processed a few years ago who was in the maritime solutions industry, but then requested us to expand the study to cover insights in the BPO industry and the banking and finance industry, because their plight is that they're losing their talents to such industries. So that's an option that clients could consider in identifying this point in their benchmark preference, what industry they'd like for the provider to study. And then the next would be the competitors. So if you have comparable companies within the same industry or other industries where you're losing your talent, then that client could particularly specify that they like to study certain key players or comparable companies where they're losing their talents. Or if they're not losing talents, they just like to benchmark because they'd like to be able to match that competitor's success in the market. So they'd like to be also, if that competitor is one of the employers of choice in the industry, then benchmarking certain competitors could also be a good best practice. As to location, a lot of the leads, the potential clients, and some clients that we have handled experience, as I mentioned in item number 2, where they lose certain talents to certain organizations or certain industries. So the location would be important where your competitors are situated in. But for those who don't have specific insights to where their employees would be, where they are losing their employees, then a guideline which we could recommend to the client is, like, for example, they're present in the NCR or the Metro Manila area. You could opt to benchmark against similar companies within the NCR area, but if they are geographically dispersed, like they're present across different areas in the country, then it would be a good practice to study the market rates, compensation rates within the NCR or Metro Manila area, because pay and compensation benefits are much more competitive in the Metro Manila region compared to other parts of the country. While there are also other business hubs across the Philippines like Cebu, Davao, and an emerging business hub as well in Clark, Angeles, Pampanga, which is starting to become a key site, a top BPO site in the Central Luzon area. And then finally, the company size. We would also like to consider the company size in terms of headcount because larger organizations like the multinational companies have the financial capacity to pay their employers higher compared to other companies who are just starting out. And larger companies have the capacity to offer greater salaries as well. So there, I mentioned about where the sources, where you could possibly obtain benchmarking data. One is industry reports. Yeah, you could search certain websites where the organization are able to provide insights concerning particular industries in terms of compensation data. And then third-party surveys where InCorp falls under this, where our benchmarking insights are prepared based on customization according to the client's benchmarking preferences. And off-the-shelf surveys where the benchmarking insights are readily available on demand, on client's demand. And another source would be government data. For example, for the Philippine Statistics Authority, psa.gov, I think is the website. They release the occupational wages survey. The latest results were as of 2020, and then they released the results in February last year. So it's a every other year, biennial survey, every other year that they perform the study. But then the con side of this, the downside of this is market data would have the tendency to not be too updated anymore by the time that you make use of the benchmarking data, since the last results covers 2020 data. So that's just the downside of using the government data. And then there's what we call the subscription services, where the benchmarking provider would gather different companies who would take part in their survey and subscribe. So as a subscriber, you have the chance to also have access to benchmarking data of other companies who also subscribe in the service. But then the downside of this, it's usually very expensive, costly. While there are also benchmarking data found in the internet, online, like for example, certain job boards would reflect the range of salary offers on the job advertisements. And there's even a website of a popular job board where they call it the salary calculator, where you could assess the competitiveness of your so if you're an employee, a candidate, you'd like to assess the competitiveness of the pay that you have and how it fares against market standards. But it's general in nature. Sometimes it's not too specific. So that's the downside of making use of online data. So there. So what do we need to consider when considering salary benchmarking study, a provider? The three things that we have to consider is its reliability, its relevance, and its being up to date. So there. And the next step of the process in conducting a salary benchmarking analysis is to analyze data where we would identify trends and patterns in terms of the base salaries, the bonuses, the benefits, and other forms of compensation, while taking into consideration and making adjustments based on the job functions of your internal job functions, the experience levels, and the geographic location, the company size, and the industry sector of the benchmark samples that you're considering, that you're studying. There. So the next step would be to interpret the results. This is where we identify any gaps between the organization's compensation structure and that of its competitors or industry standards. So factors that we could consider when interpreting results is talent retention, employee morale, and organizational culture. In the coming slides, I'll be talking about the paid philosophy as well, where the compensation strategy is hinged on. So every organization, as a best practice, must have their pay philosophy, because their compensation packages and their compensation strategy will be basically hinged on their organization's pay philosophy. And then the second to the last step of conducting a salary benchmarking analysis is to develop a plan where the organization addresses any gaps in the compensation structure. So this involves adjusting salaries or benefits accordingly, or revisiting job descriptions or titles. So in the revisiting job JDs or position titles, this is where another HR consulting project called the job analysis comes in, where job descriptions are established or validated. If the organization has existing JDs for all positions across their organizations, but then these are no longer updated, then it would be helpful to conduct a study on job analysis. But then job analysis and evaluation is a different topic altogether, which as I mentioned a while ago, will be covered on a more in-depth webinar sometime second half of this year. So after having validated or revisited job descriptions, you might have to assess the job titles, whether it's appropriately crafted or does it need to be adjusted based on the revised job descriptions as well as the revised organizational structure. The next step under developing the plan would be the HR could develop new compensation strategies. So this is where the job evaluation project comes in, where the salary structure is established or revised. So this is the last step in conducting a salary benchmarking analysis. So if we will be implementing changes based on the plan, based on the collected data on our analysis, and after having developed the plan, this is the time that we will be implementing changes. So we could start off by updating HR policies and procedures, and then subsequently communicating the changes to employees. We've had a past job analysis and evaluation project that we comboed with a salary benchmarking study, and then we had to roll out like a 2 to 3 hour rollout session among the employees to help address any concerns, because once you perform organizational changes, then possibly there might be a high possibility that employees might air out some grievances or concerns relating to the change in the way they are compensated. So it's very important to communicate the changes to the employees and explain to them the basis and the source, the factors considered in creating the salary structure. And the next factor that we could consider while implementing changes is to work with recruiters to attract and retain top talent. So this might entail or professional recruiters to apply some strategic recruitment moves to be able to attract and retain top talent in your respective organizations. There. Feel free to type in your comments or questions in the chat box, and at the end of our session, during the Q&A portion of this event, we'll be addressing those comments and those questions as well. All right, so now let's move on to how to make use of salary benchmarking data to create an internal pay structure. Is everybody still with me? Could you put up a thumbs up sign if everyone is still with me? Thank you. All right, so there. So how do you make use of salary benchmarking data to create an internal pay structure? Basically, benchmarking data is a crucial tool for developing a pay structure, and that would align with your organization's overall compensation strategy and business objectives. So these are the steps on creating an internal pay structure based on the use of salary benchmarking data. So defining the compensation strategy, gathering salary benchmarking data, then analyzing the data, developing a pay structure, and reviewing and adjusting the pay structure, and finally communicating the pay structure to your employees. But let me zero in more on defining the compensation strategy and developing a pay structure because of very limited time that we have this afternoon. All right. The first step is to define the compensation strategies. This is where we identify the goals of the organization's compensation program. Is your intention to attract and retain talent, or would you like to motivate your employees or to achieve pay equity, or all of these things? Our main target is to align our compensation strategy with the overall business objectives, which leads me to talk about the organization's pay philosophy, as I mentioned earlier on in this webinar. So the compensation strategy is hinged on the organization's pay philosophy. Does the organization have financial capacity to pay relative to competition, which is pay at market, which is the second bullet on this list? Or are there as budgetary constraints a factor? So it's the organization has a tendency to take on the lag policy where they pay below market? Or is the organization adopting a strategy where they take on the lead policy where they pay above market standards? So these are three options to take your establish your pay philosophy. There are, as I mentioned, some organizations, especially the smaller ones, might have challenges, especially if the organization is a startup, as an SME and a startup company. So they might have challenges in terms of leading the market or providing pay that is basically exactly at par with market standards. So one strategy here is to find a middle ground. So if your company has concerns with managing their budget for compensation related expenses, the organization has the option to pay, like say for example, pay 10% below market, but then compensate this lack by offering great benefits. Like for example, the best practices among organizations that we have experienced as benchmarking clients is they offer health insurance, HMO, or group life insurance, and some would offer retirement benefits. So these are just a few examples of great benefits that we could offer our employees. But then there are possible effects or repercussions with the lag policy. So be prepared for a higher turnover or attrition rate and lower skilled employees. But since the company is not expending to a high budget in compensating their employees, then they don't have to offer their products and services at a higher price. So therefore, organizations employing the lag policy could experience a high volume sales because the products and services are in a more affordable range. But then the negative repercussions are, as I mentioned, a higher attrition rate or lower skilled employees. Possible effects or consequences of a lead policy is the company is able to retain high quality employees, but then the effect is they would have to offer products and services at a higher price, which could have an effect on the sustainability of the business. If you could see the red all caps statement here, lead too much and it could lead to bankruptcy. There is a certain company in the US who employed a lead policy without knowing exactly or specifically the market data. So they employ the lead policy where every possession title, every employee in the organization are offered 30% above market standards, because their intention there, they were starting the company and their intention is to be able to attract and recruit 300 employees within the first 6 months. So without having conducted proper market analysis and getting the assistance of a seasoned compensation and benefits consultant, they adopted a lead policy and they had to offer their products and services at a higher market price. So the consequence is that they had to close down shop after some time, because it could not be a sustainable move to apply a lead policy across all positions in your organization, especially at a 30% above market rate. So in the coming slides, I'll explain more about this. So here, in this 5-point statistical summary, which comprises of the minimum, the 25th percentile, the median, the 75th percentile, and the maximum salary ranges. So just to serve an illustrative example for the business intelligence lead. So the ideal scenario here would be to offer the median point, which is 88,000. That's already competitive and at par with market rates. But then some organizations will offer at the 25th percentile, which is the lag policy. So offering at the median range would be paying at market standards or paying according to the rates of competitors. And then the 75th percentile, it's basically leading the lead policy. But then, as I mentioned, there are certain repercussions to adopting a lead policy. But then for some critical roles within the organization, like top executives or certain roles in the market that are hard to obtain, to recruit and hire because of scarcity in the market, like for example, the software developers, and some certain positions in the tech industry, an organization could opt to offer above market. But then, as I mentioned, offering all of your employees and adopting a lead policy across the entire organization might not be a sustainable move for us. So we have to consider also that offering a high level of compensation across the entire firm, the entire organization, would entail the business to offer its products and services at a higher range, which could not really be attractive to our customers or our external customers. So there. So in this case, I mentioned about for those who would, due to budgetary constraints, you could offer, like for example, 10% below the median and offer great benefits. This could compensate for the lack in terms of compensation there. In the next slides, I'll be talking about the compare ratio. So you'll be able to appreciate better this particular slide. So here's a sample pay philosophy. Let me read this. So in order to recruit and keep great talent, our company believes in paying employees at rates that put us among the best businesses in the markets in which we compete. Our company will offer a competitive level of total compensation that responds to exceptional financial performance. According to the value of the job and individual performance, our remuneration system will recognize and reward each employee. You would notice here this phrase, value of the job. This could be addressed by job analysis and evaluation study, where relative weights would be applied on jobs across the organization that would be based on compensable factors. But then that's a job analysis and a job evaluation study, which we're not really delving deep into this afternoon, but just to provide you insights to be able to identify the value of the job in relation to other jobs within the organization you have. It would be advisable to conduct a job analysis and job evaluation study. So here, let's talk about now the salary range spreads. So the salary range spread is basically the difference between the minimum and the maximum range of a compensation. And to illustrate, for one, let's say for example, for one job level, your minimum salary is 50,000 pesos and your maximum is 75,000 pesos. So that means your salary range spread is 50% because the difference between the minimum and the maximum is 50% and the midpoint is 62,500. How do you compute for the midpoint? This is basically adding the maximum and the minimum range divided by 2. That's how you compute for the midpoint. So to get the spread percentage, you subtract the from maximum range, the minimum range, divided by the minimum range. So in this example, the maximum salary range for a certain job level is at 75,000, subtracted by 50,000 pesos. And the result of that is 25,000 pesos, and then we'll divide 25,000 by the minimum range, which is 50,000, and the resulting percentage is 50%. To illustrate that in a graphical representation, the cited minimum, midpoint, and maximum ranges are reflected on this slide. So in the difference between the minimum and the maximum, the distance, it's a 50% salary range spread. So in the next slide, please note that these are just recommendatory and a general guideline for us to possibly consider. But then at the end of the day, the range spreads would depend on the organization's overall budget and the organization's pay philosophy, but you could use this as a general guide. So you could go below this percentages or above depending on the organization's overall budget. Let's say, for example, for administrative positions, a typical range spread would be 40%, while for professional and supervisory positions, it's at 50%. And finally, for managerial and executive positions, it could be 60% or above. So you would notice the higher you go in the organizational structure, the higher the range spreads. And our purpose for this is to offer more growth opportunities as people advance in the organizational structure or in the organizational hierarchy. But let me emphasize that these percentages are could serve as our guideline, as a general guideline, and the range spreads would still depend on the organization's organizational overall budget for compensation. So you could go lower or higher depending on your pay philosophy. So now let's move on to the compare ratio. The formula compares an employee's actual salary to the midpoint of the salary range of market rates. So this will help us determine whether we are paying our employees below market standards, at market standard, or according to competitors' rates, or are we paying above market rates? And when our marketing team published the details of this webinar event this afternoon, there is a link in the website of InCorp Philippines where you could find a more detailed discussion on the compare ratio. So it's found at kittlesoncarpo.com. So there's a link on the webinar details on the website, or you could just follow the blog portion in the InCorp Philippines. By the way, InCorp Philippines used to be known as Kittleson and Carpo Consulting. So off topic. So let me go back to our main topic, the compare ratio. So there. So for instance, the calculation shows that the midpoint for a managerial position at your present income level is 60,000 pesos. Of 60,000 pesos is 62,500 pesos. So we're saying that the midpoint is 62,500 pesos and the actual income is 60,000 pesos. And assuming a maximum range of 75,000 pesos and the minimum range of 50,000 pesos. So to compute for the compare ratio, we divide from the current salary the midpoint for that level So in this particular example, in figure terms, 60,000 pesos divided by 62,000 pesos is equivalent to 96%. So there, if the compa ratio results to 100%, then this means that the employee is paid at market median, which is the ideal situation or ideal scenario. But then a compa ratio result between 90% to 110%. Some compensation and benefits experts would even say 80% to 120% is still okay. So this is competitive and acceptable, but then this would depend on your pay philosophy and the budget of the company and the revenue of the company as well. So in this particular scenario, the compa ratio is at 96%. So that means that that particular employee is being paid competitively. There is data that, like, for example, if you're using the 80% to 120% guideline, so if the employee is a new and inexperienced employee or is not really performing at par with expectations, we could offer at an 80% to 87% compa ratio. For those who are still developing in their roles, we could offer, like, say, for example, 88% to 95% compa ratio. But for those who are consistent performers, we could possibly offer 96% to 110% compa ratio. But then this is only recommendatory. This is still up to the organization how much they have budget, they have bandwidth to pay their employees. So just use this as a guide, as a tool, a viable tool to assess whether how you're paying your employees, whether you're paying below, at, or above market standards. And then you might, some of the leads that we processed in the past gave us a question: when do we provide salary increases to our employees? There are basically three options for the effective period. One is a fixed focal point where all increases for all employees are effective at the same time. The advantage or the good thing about this is the predictability in terms of budgeting. While the second effective period or option is to call the anniversary date, where employees get increases based on their date of hire or job entry. The advantage is it staggers the increases throughout the year, and it's easier to handle in terms of cash flow. And the third effective period or option would be the variable timing, where employees get increases based on performance. This is less predictable, but then this is a highly recommended option as well. For those, for our webinar participants right now, can you type on the chat box which particular option or effective period are you making use in your organization? Do you pay at fixed focal point or anniversary date or variable timing? I'd like to see comments on the chat box. Do we have comments now?
Yeah, we have one fixed focal point.
Fixed focal point. How about the rest?
I think
they're mostly on fixed focal point.
I see. So I'd like to know their insights. Why are you making use of fixed focal point? Is it because of so that you'll be able to predict the budget more? I'd like to hear the thoughts of those who were able to answer the fixed focal point effective period. So would like to share best practices here. So don't be shy. If you'd like to unmute yourself or put comments in the chat box to share your insights. Any comments from the participants? So far none.
Okay, there's one. It's tied up to our performance cycle.
Yeah. Also budget predictability and alignment, variable timing. So I think it's pointing out on the advantages you've mentioned, Ivy.
I see. All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
There's actually just one more: coincides with turn of fiscal.
It coincides with your company fiscal year. I see. All right. So there, let's now move on to the latest trends on employee benefits in the post-pandemic Philippine job market. Do we have any other comments or questions at this point that our participants are putting in the chat box, Sherwin?
None as of the moment.
All right. So, feel free to put in your comments and your insights or questions in the chat box so that we could engage with you towards the end of this webinar. All right. Some of the latest trends on employee benefits in the post-pandemic Philippine job market would be at the onset of the pandemic, this called for organizations to be able to address their employees' need for mental health support. Like, for example, counseling services or yoga meditation sessions. And some organizations would offer online resources for managing stress and anxiety. I know of a certain HMO who has already started offering mental health professionals being available online to address employees' mental health concerns. So there, like, for example, you could go on a teleconsult and then consult a mental health professional over the phone. Like, I think these are clinical psychologists. So there, this is getting to be more prevalent now, especially as a result of what we experienced during the pandemic, where mental stress has been a concern for a lot of our employees. And then the next trend would be the flexible work arrangements, where organizations are offering remote work and employers are providing adequate equipment and tools to allow their employees to work remotely. And then the offering of flexible work schedules in order to promote work-life balance. The next are an intensification of the health and wellness programs, like offering gym memberships, wellness challenges like the Biggest Loser Challenge. Some HR departments would open such challenges among their employees, and then they would be rewarding the biggest loser. So that's one. And offering healthy food options. I know of an organization that on certain days of the week would offer fruits on certain days of the week. So healthy food options for their employees. And then next would be the financial wellness programs, where they offer financial education sessions, like they invite financial consultants to conduct sessions or training sessions, webinar sessions for their employees to raise awareness on how employees could better manage their funds, accessibility to financial planners, and loans with lower interest rates, where the company would partner with certain banks so that the banks could offer their employees with lower loans with lower interest rates. And this applies to the medical profession. For frontline workers. Hazard pay has been offered as a result of what we experienced during the pandemic, and additional health insurance coverage and paid time off to rest and recuperate, especially if the frontliner acquired COVID in the performance of his or her duty in the medical facility. So there, to recap, these are the trends in employee benefits in the post-pandemic Philippine job market. So we have the mental health support, flexible work arrangements, health and wellness programs, financial wellness programs, and increased benefits for frontline workers. So we're towards the end of our webinar proper. These are the topics that we have just covered. We have defined what salary benchmarking is and conveyed the significance of performing a salary survey. We also discussed about the steps in salary benchmarking analysis and how to make use of salary benchmarking data to create an internal pay structure. And lastly, the latest trends and employee benefits in the post-pandemic Philippine job market. I believe right after this presentation proper, we have a partner in the industry who will be sharing their services as well. But please stay tuned because my colleague Leah Galera, as introduced at the start of this session, as well as yours truly, will be coming back for the Q&A session where you could raise your questions, your comments, or any insights that you'd like to share with our fellow practitioners in the industry. So stay tuned as I hand over the floor to Sherwin, back to Sherwin, and then, as mentioned, an industry partner of ours will be conducting a very short presentation, and Leia Galera and I will be coming back for the Q&A session. Thank you so much. See you again in a few minutes from now.
Okay, thank you, Ivy. That's actually very insightful on how we could really do salary benchmarking, because I know a lot of HR really don't know how to do that. And me as an employee, I think I'm also curious about my salary ratio. I might take note of the knowledge that I take from now. This is the best time for you to type in your questions because we actually invited you, Uno Bank, that will discuss some advantage that you could use to retain your employees. Sam, could you make Miss Alex Tabuena's co-host so she could take over our presentation? Hello, Alex. Are you with us now?
Hi, Sherwin and team. Yes. Can you hear me?
Uh,
Can you all hear me
yeah, we
naman?
could hear you clearly. Were you able to show your screen?
Yes, I can share my
Okay,
screen. Hold
wonderful.
on.
Okay, again, everyone, this is Alex from Uno Bank that will discuss of their services that might you may take advantage of having putting additional more benefits to your employees. And again, this is the best time. If you have any questions to Leah and to Ivy, if you have any clarifications on the very wonderful details that we got on salary benchmarking, we'll be happy to answer them. We actually received few, so if you want it to be answered anonymously, just send a direct message to me. Okay, Alex.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. I would like to thank Sherwin, first of all, and the InCorp team for this opportunity to speak to all of you today. I would like to commend also Miss Ivy for hosting this very insightful and comprehensive webinar regarding salary benchmarking and benefits benchmarking. It's actually perfectly in line with what I'm planning to present to you all today and very in line with Uno Bank's focus in the coming months. So here, let me just share my screen. Before I present what I'm about to share with you all today, I'd like to formally introduce myself. So my name is Alex Tabuena. I'm the Business Development Manager at Uno Digital Bank. And today it is my pleasure to introduce you all to our company, Uno Bank, as well as talk about some of our products and services that we currently offer. And then at the end of, or after that, I would like to present an opportunity to all of you. I understand most of the attendees today are from HR. And perhaps this is an opportunity that would pique your interest with regards to corporate employee loans or our salary loan program. So actually, in the interest of time, I'll just be sharing with you all a snapshot of what we usually present to our clients. But if any of you have any other questions or would like to take this engagement further, I will leave my contact details with you at the end of this presentation, and we can take it from there. Okay, so first I would like to introduce you all to our company, which is Uno Digital Bank. So who exactly are we as Uno Digital Bank? So we are a fully digital or app-only bank. So the concept of a digital bank, I understand, is a fairly new concept, especially in the Philippines. So as a digital bank, we actually don't have any physical branches. And all of our transactions and processes from onboarding to fund transfer to paying your bills are all done in the app. Just a disclaimer, I would like to mention that we are still a bank despite this concept being fairly new. So we have all the fundamentals of a traditional bank, and we are also just as regulated as a traditional bank. So we are regulated by the BSP, and we are also PDIC insured up to 500,000 pesos per depositor. So, however, our advantage that I would like to harp on is even if we don't have any physical branches, as a digital bank, our customers are actually able to open an account, transact, pay their bills from anywhere they are in the country at any time, all through the convenience of our mobile app. In line with that, we are actually one of the six digital banks in the Philippines that have been granted a digital banking license by the BSP. So we are one of the six as well who were helped to, or who were chosen to help drive financial inclusion and digitalize the payment system in the Philippines. So we actually started with our deposit accounts and our deposit accounts last year. And very recently, actually, we have just launched one of our biggest partnerships to date with GCash, or with GCash through their GSave arm. So we have many other initiatives also as well planned for later on this year, more to come. And our headquarters is actually in Singapore. We are under the leadership of very, very established individuals with years of experience in banking and in tech. And they have chosen the Philippines actually as the pilot country for them to roll out UNO's services and products. So as UNO, we are very, very passionate about and committed to increasing awareness and extending knowledge and education about financial literacy and making financial services and solutions accessible for the majority. So just to take you through some of our mobile app features, which I highly encourage you all to download and to explore. So we are available for download for both iOS and for Android. So just to briefly run you through the experience. Again, all of our transactions and processes are done via the app, including onboarding. So to open an account with us, you will undergo self-service onboarding and account opening. All you need is just one valid ID. And as fast as 20 minutes, happy flow, you will be able to open an account with us. So upon opening an account, you will just have to undergo our own eKYC liveness check. So this is where you will have to scan or take a picture of your valid ID and then undergo the selfie check for further verification. And then, so moving on to our other features in the app. So through the app, you are able to add money and send money via online or over-the-counter transactions. So you can also use the app to pay your bills. So our current partner for bills is Bayad Center. And then we also have our scan to pay feature, which once we expand our list of current merchant partners, it will be more enjoyed by the majority. And then when you open an account also, we will be able to issue our customers their very own free virtual debit MasterCard for you to be able to use for online purchases and all of that. And then through our app, we are also able to, or you can also access our round-the-clock customer center and customer service team for any concerns or questions that you may have. Okay, so these are our deposit accounts that we currently have. So currently we have one type of savings account and two types of time deposit accounts. And I'm very proud to say that we offer among the highest and most competitive rates in the market right now, especially compared to your traditional bank. So starting with our savings account, our customers are actually able to enjoy up to 4.25% annual interest rate. We are able to issue our customers with their own free virtual debit MasterCards, and we are also able to offer our customers free life insurance for up to 50,000 pesos. And for our customers to qualify for that, all they need to do is to just maintain an average daily balance of 10,000 pesos. And then they will be qualified already to avail of free life insurance up to 50,000 pesos. Also, for our send money or for fund transfers, we do free send money or free fund transfers to any bank or to any e-wallet via InstaPay or PesoNet. And then soon, once we launch our physical debit MasterCards, if you decide to partner with us, actually as our corporate partner, we will be able to issue your employees with their own free physical debit MasterCards. And then for our time deposit accounts naman, we have two types of time deposits. They both offer interest rates of up to they both offer interest rates of 6.5% annual interest rate. They only differ in the tenure and the interest payout. So for our first time deposit account, our Uno Boost account, the tenure ranges from 3 to 12 months and the interest payout happens on maturity. While for the Uno Earn Time Deposit account, the tenure ranges from either 12 or 24 months and the interest payout will be monthly. And then right now, actually, we have a lot of other ongoing promos, which you can check out via the app or you can visit our website as well to explore at uno.bank. So to present our corporate employee loan program, which this is the opportunity that I was talking about a while ago, which we think will be very, very beneficial for your employees. Currently, just to manage expectations, currently we only cater to companies based within Metro Manila. However, in our phase 2, which will be around the second half of this year, Q3 or Q4, we will then extend our services to the Vismin region. So just to talk about our corporate employee loan program, it is an unsecured single loan drawdown personal loan. So in line with that, no collateral or co-maker is needed for our customers or for your employees to apply for a loan. And then when a customer or when your employee wants to apply for a loan with us, upon application, automatically an Uno savings account will be open for them. And then that's where the loan will be dispersed for your employees. And then for our advantage, actually, going back to being a digital bank, as a digital bank, we were able to really build world-class technology that provides financial services in a very accessible and timely manner. So in line with that, we are actually able to approve loan applications in as fast as 20 minutes. Happy flow, considering no findings when a customer or an employee applies for a loan, we can approve loan applications in as fast as 20 minutes. And then for the tenure, your employees can choose up to 36 months tenure. And then for the repayment naman, we currently do repayments in equal installments, either monthly or semi-monthly, depending on the arrangement between us, Uno Bank, and your company. We can talk about that later on. And then we actually also give the company the opportunity, if you want to provide us with a whitelist or a blacklist of employees whom you think would be eligible or not eligible for a loan, you can provide that information to us, and then we will include that information in our own underwriting process. And then for the modes of repayment, we have two. So we can do the repayment either standing instruction or via salary deduction. So for the standing instruction mode of repayment, this mode of repayment is via auto debit from the employee's Uno savings account. So we just need to make sure that the employee's Uno savings account has funds for the auto debit arrangement. And then for the rates, we are able to offer you, as your corporate partner, discounted rates. So for standing instruction, from 1.79 public rate, we are able to bring it down to 1.49% monthly add-on rate. And then for via salary deduction naman, which we actually recommend, we are able to give you a lower rate for that as well. So for salary deduction, we can provide you with a 1.32% monthly add-on rate. And then for the processing fee, they both have the same processing fee. From 3% public rate, we will bring it down to 2% of the loan amount as your corporate partner. So our corporate employee loan program is actually really meant to complement your existing services or processes. As we understand that maybe some of you already have ongoing partnerships with other providers. We merely want to serve as another option for your employees who need immediate access to funds. So currently, our loanable amounts range from 10,000 to 200,000 pesos. And your employees will have access to very affordable financing options through flexible terms and very competitive rates. Again, no collateral or co-maker is required in applying for a loan. And in line with this also, Uno Bank will not treat the company as a guarantor of the employee's loan. So let's say in the case that an employee resigns from the company, we would just need your help in deducting the remaining balance from the employee's final pay. However, if that is not sufficient to cover the repayment, Uno Bank or our own collections team will be responsible for coordinating with the employee directly. So you need not to worry about all of that, as you will not be treated as a guarantor for the employee's loan. And then so here, I'm actually down to my last few slides. But then these are just some of the benefits that I would like to highlight by being your corporate partner. However, I would like to harp on the last bullet or the last point at the bottom of the screen, which is we are actually very, very open to arranging different financial literacy programs or webinars or materials for your employees to supplement or provide that additional learning for your employees to be able to really manage their funds better and grow their money. Okay, so this is my last slide actually, and I leave you all with the following points of why you should choose Uno as your financial services provider. So again, we aim to really be a very comprehensive one-stop solution for employee and customer financial needs at very, very competitive prices or rates. We are the best in class, secure and seamless user mobile app journey. And we have a very, very dedicated client relationship management support team as well. Okay, so that actually concludes my portion for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to engage with me via email, or if you want to take this partnership with us further, please contact me also via my email on the screen right now. So I hope to work with you all very soon. Thank you so much, and thank you to the InCorp team as well for this opportunity.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Uno Bank, for that wonderful insight. Because actually, this is no, I'm also an HR, and did you know that loans are one of the motivating factors for employees to stay? So take advantage of offering this kind of services in your employees. If you have one in place, and if Uno's percentage is competitive, why not onboard both? So there's it's not wrong to have more benefits for your employees. And now we will move to question and answer. Again, if you have any more questions, please free to type in on the chat box. Okay, let's start. So Ivy and Leia will help you with the questions. Our first question is anonymously. May I ask for online resources where we can see industry benchmark? They do normally use Glassdoor, but they think that those are already outdated if the base of the counter offers our employees are getting. So Ivy, do you have anything in?
Yes, thank you so much, sir. There is a downside to making use, not to say something bad about online job boards or other online resources, but then there is generally a con or a negative side to making use of free online data. Like for example, for certain job boards, there's such a thing as a certain job boards salary calculator to assess whether a certain compensation is at par with market standards, but then there's a tendency that it could not address your particular industry, because as mentioned earlier on in our presentation, that there are certain benchmarking parameters that we'll have to take into account to be able to assess the competitiveness of how your salaries fare in the via market standards. Like for example, you need to identify what industry you'd like to study, the specific roles. So there are certain roles in the market that are possibly compensated differently across different industries. And then the geographical location as well is a factor. So making use of free online resources like the ones in job boards could be a bit misleading if it is not able to address specifically and zero in on your specific benchmarking needs. So what we normally recommend is for people in the HR field or those business decision makers who are in charge of assessing the competitiveness of their salaries against market standards is to make use of third-party players in the market who provide salary benchmarking insights. Well, just to be not to hard sell what InCorp offers, but we could come up with a customized rate for your particular benchmarking needs. And try to consider setting up an exploratory call with us so we could discuss what we could offer in terms of salary and benefits benchmarking, and we could possibly give you a quote which hopefully your organization would be amenable to invest on, because attracting and retaining talent is of paramount importance nowadays in the modern job market. So it's very important to be able to offer attractive and competitive compensation and benefits to our valued talents, especially if you'd like to attract and retain talents who are skilled and who will be able to positive impact the bottom line of the business organization. So maybe recommend that you make use of professional providers of benchmarking insights. Although you could still make use of job boards, but it could only provide you a general overview of what the industry is able to offer certain positions in the market. But then if you'd like to zero in on the specific needs that would address your benchmarking parameters, then it would be best to consult a professional in the salary and benefits benchmarking providers market. So I hope I was able to answer that question. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivy. Another question anonymously sent. What do they think about salary transparency? Wow, this is a good question. They do think this could help the industry to create a viable standard for both companies and employees, or are they against it? Our speakers, Leah and Ivy. How do you address this question about salary transparency?
Yeah, I just was not able to introduce my colleague Leah in a more in-depth way, but Leah is our partner in the performance of our salary and benefits benchmarking study. So we work hand in hand with Leah, and Leah represents InCorp Global Talent Solutions. So there are partners in performing salary benchmarking studies for our clients. So she's highly credible in terms of providing answers to any of your compensation and benefits related concerns as to salary benchmarking. So Leah, would you have any insights about transparency in terms of conveying salaries and benefits transparently to employees?
Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Sherwin. So, hi, good afternoon, guys. So, just to answer the question, we all know that the salary is actually like one of the most sensitive topics in the workforce or in an organization. So, we really have to handle it very, very carefully. So, you don't really want to be posting, let's say if you will be doing job postings, you'll post there the salaries of the positions that you're hiring for your company, but then there are people working there with the same position, so they'll see how much your range is. So probably you can just put in like a very generic range. I'm not really against, the transparency. Transparency is really important to your employees as well, because they have to, be able to make sure that they're secured in their possessions and also in their companies. But at the same time, it can cause confusion, and it can also cause a rift between newly hired employees to your current employees. So it's actually really good to have like a benchmarking study to see if your current employees are getting the right pay, or if you're competitive enough, and be able to offer something in the same range for your new employees as well. So again, it's really more of finding like how you can handle it discreetly, but at the same time finding like the sweet spot wherein it's also in a way transparent to your employees. So I hope I was able to answer that. Do you have anything to add, Ivy?
Yeah, I do have a bit of some insights about that. Well, in our experience in offering the job analysis and evaluation comboed with a salary benchmarking study, what we did as business consultants for this client is to help roll out like a 2 to 3 hour session with the rest of the employees. But then the conduct of the project, the benchmarking and the JAJE project was done between the consultants and members of the management team, as well as representatives from the HR side and some representatives from the different departments who are knowledgeable about the ins and outs of their operations. But then when it comes to the detailed information of the salary structure during the rollout of that particular project, we just approached it as an overview, and we did not have to disclose the details of how the salary structure is created or established. So we were basically there to be able to address any concerns or questions coming from the employees related to the changes in the way they are compensated. But then if you intend to communicate salary details to the employees, there are certain types of reports that you have to customize according to your audience. So if you're reporting to the management, then providing information as to how the competitiveness of your organization fares with via the market standards is how your report should look like. But if you're talking to managers or people handlers of different departments, then you could possibly reveal to them how their direct reports are compensated, and then a separate type of documentation once you're revealing to individual employees about their compensation. But then you don't, when talking to communicating to your employees in terms of salary information, you're not obliged really as a recommendation to disclose the exact salary structure, because as conveyed by Leia, in the Filipino culture, it's quite a sensitive salary and benefits. Salary matters are quite a very sensitive topic, especially that we're taking into consideration when we offer compensation to our employees, their level of experience or their tenure, let's say for example in the company, and their job performance. So there are certain factors that we take into consideration in offering compensation. So would really not really be a good idea to be too transparent how employees are paid a certain way, and then revealing to other employees in the organization how that employee is compensated. So those are our 2 cents about the matter.
Thank you, Ivy and Leia. I actually have a note on the take on that, because Filipino culture, this is not a norm of Filipinos to discuss their salary. I think the problem here is when your account or your mother company is based in US per se. It happens a lot that they need to adjust on the Philippine culture, because in other countries they freely discuss their salary range That's not like here in the Philippines. So yeah, with the reason why we're doing benchmarking is to avoid salary distortion. So I think with this action, we were able to resolve the issues inside. So a little bit of transparency is okay, but still in moderation, like what Leia said. We still have few more questions here. This one, Ivy, they ask, how frequently should an organization review their compensation practices?
All right. To answer that question, thank you, Sherwin, for conveying that question. It basically depends on several factors, such as the size of the organization and what industry your company belongs in, and in terms of the competitiveness, the competitive landscape where your industry belongs. So the general guideline is to conduct a thorough review of your compensation practices at least annually or once a year. But then there are certain circumstances that would necessitate a more frequent review. Like, for example, in the event of significant changes in the labor market. Let's say, for example, there are changes in the supply and demand for talent in the market at a certain period of time, and then if there have been changes in prevailing wage rates. So those are things that we need to consider and would need us to perform a more frequent salary study. And another thing is, in the event of mergers and acquisitions where there is a corresponding reorganizations or changes in the organizational structure. So that's when we determine to try to review and revisit our salary, our compensation practices as to be able to have an alignment in terms of the structure, the new structure and the objectives of the company. And another thing is to address legal or regulatory changes. Like, for example, if there are some regulations from the government introduced recently that would impact salary compensation practices, then that's a good time as well to revisit your salary offerings. Another thing is to align performance and company goal alignments. Let's say, for example, certain employees have been promoted or there have been employee movements. So it would be a best practice to try to review your salaries like every 3 months to address individual and company performance. And the last thing that I could think of is considering the competitive landscape. Like, for example, if the industry you belong to is very competitive in nature and there's a great war for talents where competition for talent is really high, like for example, the IT and tech industry, the e-commerce, the retail industry, the engineering, the construction industry, these key industries are quite at a war for talent and with a limited pool of viable talents available and the scarcity of talents for certain positions. So you may try to consider reviewing, conducting a more thorough review of your compensation practices more frequent than just annually.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
I think we have a few more questions here. We actually got to a question that has the same idea on understanding the market is specific to Southeast Asia, and I think it's also chatted in everyone. For Asia Pacific region benchmarking surveys, do we have any ideas or could we answer that question?
Leia, would you have insights about that?
Yeah, actually, for the salary benchmarking service that we provide, since most of our clients are based in the Philippines, and since a lot of our candidates are actually coming from the Philippines as well, we only have data points available for the Philippines. Although, if let's say we have a data point that actually came from another country who's looking for employment in the Philippines, we take into consideration that information as well. But mainly, our focus is in the Philippines.
Yeah. Just to add some insights into what Leia mentioned, we actually have a certain client. We've experienced an inquiry from a certain benchmarking client, a long-term benchmarking client of ours who is basically based in another country, and they're contemplating about establishing a local entity in the country, and they're asking if we provide a specialized report for international companies like them that could study market rates for international companies like them who intend to hire talents in the Philippines and establish their business here. So as what Leia mentioned, we at the moment we target Philippine pay rates, but then for similar organizations who are present internationally or outside of the Philippines and they have intentions to establish a business entity in the Philippines, what are other clients and leads that we have processed since we started offering the service is they would opt to consider Philippine pay rates as well in conducting the benchmarking study. So if you have an intention, you are an offshore company that is located outside of the Philippines and you have intentions or plans to establish a business in the Philippines, just to share with you that similar clients of ours would also opt to consider studying according to local pay rates.
Thank you, Ivy. I think we will accommodate last three questions. The first one is they would like to find out if you guys will share information on tech market salary benefits benchmarking information, as this will be very beneficial to our company.
Go ahead, Leia.
Yeah, actually, for this particular webinar, we won't be able to provide you with like specifics in terms of, how much would be the salary ranges or what particular benefits these IT companies would provide. I believe that can be discussed in a more thorough or a more in-depth meeting with Ivy or myself, since again, the salary benchmarking project we have is more of in line with what you need. So we have to get like specific details from you as well, like what would be the company size, what is the location, what particular positions do you need to be studied, so at least it's much more focused with what you need. But we do have like a lot of information in terms of IT tech positions as well as BPO surveys, since these are actually really high in demand in the past couple of years.
True.
Actually, Leia, there's a follow-up question.
Good help on that. The question is for you. When you do recruitment for a client, do you recommend a salary range or go through with the client salary range?
Yes, actually, whenever we meet with a client, the first question we ask, aside from the job description, would be the salary range that we have. This is for us to be able to assess if they're actually competitive with the market. If, let's say, the salary range they provided is really far off from what the market is asking, we educate our clients, we give them advice, we give them, an overview of how much this would cost already, so that the client can take a look at their budget, see if this is something that they can negotiate, see if there's something that they can offer to their candidates. If their salary or if their budget is actually in place, or you really don't have like enough wiggle room, then we negotiate on the skills part. Like maybe we can find somebody with lesser years of experience, because we really can't like just follow what the client would dictate, because it will also be difficult for us to find potential candidates who would be interested in that particular salary range. So it's more of like a give and take situation, or a give and take relationship with our clients, that they provide us with information, we provide them with advice, and we give them like up to date information. Whenever we endorse candidates for recruitment anyway, we also include compensation details, so that can also help clients with their salary benchmarking needs.
Thank you. Yeah. Again, the next question is also for you. Since IT is an extremely competitive industry, although the questions are recruitment related now, because you could really not take separate benchmarking and talent acquisition, I think.
Yeah.
So this is why we have this kind of question. What's the usual timeline for IT recruitment to be filled? I think that's the last question that we will answer.
Thank you, sure. So for IT roles to be filled, it would really depend on the skill set. So there are some IT positions that are very in common, like let's say people who handle IT infrastructure, like your network engineers or your systems developers and stuff. So usually it's not really hard to fill in these positions. It takes roughly around like 15 days to 30 days to fill. But for like very niche positions like your developers, that would need to handle specific languages, not just your typical Java, .NET type of positions, it takes a while because it's there's certain locations that are there are certain positions that are concentrated in certain locations. So we have to take that into consideration as well. So for us, the usual timeline probably would be at least like 30 to 45 days to fill in positions. We just need to know where to look. That's the number one thing. And also if you have the budget for it, since IT positions are very in demand. So you really need to be able to meet what the employees or probably like your potential candidates would demand, or probably like meet halfway. As Ivy mentioned in her webinar as well, you know, if you can't really meet with the salary, probably compensate it with the benefits. Employee engagement is also very, very important to be able to do talent acquisition. If an employee is happy, that person will not leave. So you have to keep your employees happy. That's also something you need to take a note of. But yeah, going back to the question, usually the timeline would be about like 30 to 45 days. Not taking into consideration the time that they also have to do their notice period for from their current employers. But it will depend really on like the skill set. If it's too niche or just a generic type of IT position.
Okay, thank you, Leia and Ivy, for answering those questions. If you have questions, unfortunately, we could no longer answer it. You can just send us an email. Before we officially end this, I'll just give a 1 minute last message from Ivy.
Yes, thank you, Sherwin. Yeah, in winning the war for talents in such a modern job market, well, we have to be able to put in mind that compensation and benefits is just one aspect to consider in being able to attract and retain talent. It's just a smaller fraction of more comprehensive talent management approach or strategy. So there are other factors that we could make use of or consider in winning the war for talent. Like, for example, as mentioned by Leah, employee engagement, performance management, learning and development, employee recognition. So we could come up with a more comprehensive talent management strategy to help us win the war for talents and be able to attract and retain employees. And also, finally, as a last recommendation, the salary and benefits insights that key players in the industry are able to provide are basically recommendatory and in nature. So the final decision on how a business organization will pay their employees is still depends on that particular company or organization. That would be based on their pay philosophy and their overall budget to be able to afford certain compensation across the firm. So we need not take salary and benchmarking insights as is, so at face value, because we have to also consider the company's overall budget and other factors as well. So this will just serve as your guide in assessing your competitiveness and how you fare against market standards. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for attending our webinar. If you have any more questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We would be happy to set an appointment to discuss your concerns and how our services can be relevant to you. We will also be sending the presentation deck upon request, and we kindly ask that you complete the feedback form before receiving it, because we will send a survey after this event. Once again, this is Sherwin Urbano, and on behalf of our speaker, Ms. Ivy Leslie Tahimic, and our additional resource person, Ms. Leia Galera, and the entire InCorp Philippines team, and Unobank, shout out to you, Unobank, we would like to express our gratitude for your participation. We hope you find we found the webinar informative and helpful. We look forward to seeing you on our next event. Have a great day ahead, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.